Welcome to the CuppaChino Club's social TV channel. Join us as we talk to Todd Hartley today. He is the go-to digital advisor to people like Tony Robbins, Justin Timberlake, MD Anderson, and Home Depot. We plan to pick his brain just a little bit today to see how you can pivot with COVID-19. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Best is yet to come.
If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Brigetti Limbanda from a very cold Cape Town in South Africa. But we've got a great lineup today. And my co-host,
Thanks so much, Brigetti. I think we will have to wait for, well, there she is. Thanks so much, Brigetti. We had another very cold day, but I decided that, I sort of would put on the heaters and start heating up the house now, because I think it's that time. So yeah, crazy day, but very excited about our guest today.
I am too. We are very, very privileged to have Todd Hartley in the studio with us today. And we've been talking a lot if you've been following the show, we've been talking a lot over the last couple of weeks about how entrepreneurs and businesses can pivot or should be pivoting with purpose. And it turns out that that's exactly what Todd Hartley is all about and his business Y-Buzz. And so I think let's not waste any more time. We really want to spend some time chatting to him today. Let's dive right into some of the practical steps that you and I can take to pivot with purpose.
Were you dancing?
I'm sorry.
Were you dancing? We caught you.
Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
That's good. We're excited to have you here. So that's a good thing.
Great to have you here. Todd, you know what? There's so many questions we want to ask you, and I'm going to skip the small talk. I think we're going to just dive right into the questions so that the audience can get the most value. And so if you're watching us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, Periscope, a hearty welcome to you to the show. And if there's so much value here, so I hardly ever ask people to do this, but I really, really, really would value it if you could share this with your network. So Todd, there's so many global trends that are shaping the direction that businesses should take right now. And the most obvious right now is COVID-19. But what are the other global trends that businesses should consider when they pivot?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm a digital futurist. I've been recognizing trends my entire career and adjusting my business accordingly and my clients. And probably the most important consumer trend that everybody should understand and then put into their business is the content marketing revolution started around 2004. Now, prior to that point, people needed salespeople to hold their hand and move them through the sales process. But the results of content on demand from 2004, when the revolution started, to about 2018 radically changed customer expectations. Remember, customers are 100% in charge of the buying experience now because they have access to information, and their preference is to go online, do their research, and then reach out to a salesperson when they're ready. The biggest trend is by 2018, 82% of buyers people we're all trying to influence said that they're not interested in talking to a salesperson until they're ready to make a buying decision. That's the biggest trend. There are a lot of businesses that are forcing their old business model on customers, trying to sell the way customers used to buy, but that doesn't work anymore, especially now that we're at COVID. For a lot of business owners, this is like the Great Awakening, where all of a sudden they can't physically have access in front of their prospects. And there are easy ways to pivot and prosper that we're going to talk about in this interview so you can start arranging your business accordingly.
Okay, that's great. But I do want to ask you a follow-up question to that. When you talk about trends forcing people to change, does that mean that every time there's a trend, you're changing your strategy?
It's a great question. First of all, I'm not recommending anybody, I'm not forcing anybody to change. Our customers are. You have already changed the way you buy. In fact, in our heads, because we've already thought that salespeople suck, for the last 10 years, we've been adjusting to a life that is removed from salespeople until we've narrowed it down. Like when I was a kid, we used to walk into stores and look at 7 different companies at the refrigerators. And then my dad would get upset and we'd leave and we'd go to the next store and we'd start negotiating again. But that world doesn't exist. It all happens online. And if 82% of buyers prior to COVID wanted to go on their own journey, the smart businesses adjust to what their customers are already asking for.
Perfect. That makes perfect sense. My big question is, so face-to-face is out. We all recognize that, or we should be recognizing that. But then how do you actually get businesses? How can they best sort of educate, convince,
Yes.
and convert their customers? Because that's ultimately what business is there for.
Yeah, the fundamental role of sales and marketing has not changed. The fundamental role is getting your prospects to know what you know and to believe what you believe, because that's when buying becomes a no-brainer. But what we have to do is get really good at sharing our unique value in a customer journey that happens on a page on a website so people can go through it. And I look at this as being zone 1 and zone 2, with zone 2 being your website and zone 1 being social, and piquing people's interest and adding value with videos on social. We'll explain why video in just a second. But then moving somebody with your video to a call to action, because the video's goal is to move somebody to the next step. And so all you're doing is having conversations on social like your salespeople would do. Except instead of it being face-to-face, you're sharing that information and adding value on social for the express purpose of piquing somebody's interest, adding value into their life, and then moving them into zone 2, which is your website, and not just your homepage, which isn't good enough because your homepage is made for everybody. You should be directing people to a specific landing page that's about their needs, their pain, their frustration, and the solution that you provide to them. And once you've organized that, then you transfer all of the big beliefs that that buyer needs to have about you, and you transfer that to them in the easiest learning tool ever, video, because people are much more likely to watch it, learn, and then buy.
Okay.
So what I'm getting from what you're saying, Todd, is that it's not simply about creating video for the sake of video. There has to be a strategy behind it and a plan to conclude a deal.
Absolutely. And I grew up in Los Angeles. My friends went on to win Academy Awards. I have no interest in a video for the sake of video. I love video for the sake of a sale, for retaining customers, for upselling them, and for the 3 little letters that matter the most to business owners: return on investment. Like, that's my obsession. So you have to lay that all out before you start creating the videos. You have to lay out a strategy and map it out and visually look at it. In fact, on this table right here, it's all drawn out on the back of the table, one client's strategy for the 4 different types of customers that they sell to. So everybody's got to look at it And everybody who's creating content has to go, okay, this is going to go here and this connects to this and this goes there. Okay, I see it. Because once you see what functions have to take place, then and only then can you write the right script.
Right. So, everyone throws around the word pivot right now with COVID-19. But what does it mean to you and ultimately to your clients? What does that look like for you?
Sure. The big pivot is upgrading how we teach. Now, this might sound simple, but the reality is all we're really doing is teaching and getting our prospects to believe that we have the unique value that they need to solve their problem. So physically, salespeople used to be out in front of prospects teaching, doing the knowledge transfer that needs to happen from your salesperson's big brain bloop, into your prospect's brain. But because that doesn't happen, you still have to teach. Your responsibility is still the same, but the way you teach has to now be done in video, and it has to be done in a compelling and entertaining way. And when you create your videos, I want you to I want you to connect each of the videos. Like, for example, we shouldn't think that you can teach your entire unique value in one video unless you've got an impulse buy, which most of us don't. So if you have to, like, how long does it take for you to convince somebody if you're sitting in front of them? Like, sometimes when we got started, it took us 9 weeks, which was like 6 meetings to do the knowledge transfer. So maybe 6 hours. Figure out how long it takes you to teach somebody if you're in person, and then transfer that experience over onto your website so you could start teaching people with video 1 and then video 2 and then video 3. And the reason I want you to map it out in advance is because I want you to use what Netflix does to you. When you map it out in advance, when you get to the end of video 1, you could start teasing and moving people with a cliffhanger into video 2. And when people are watching video 2, you want to cliffhanger them and move them into video 3. So what you're really doing is you're creating an on-demand, binge-worthy buying experience. And when you do that, you transfer the information in the least amount of time. People raise their hand because they want to ask more questions. And the pivot ultimately starts with pivoting away from face-to-face, transitioning that knowledge, which is best given by salespeople who've already optimized the path to purchase. They already know, like, often marketers think they're supposed to lead the decision of what information comes first and second, but the salespeople have already optimized it. They're the ones that know which stories to tell in front of which type of customer to get the desired outcome. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It really does. I had to smile because I also host a show for authors, and one of the things a lot of the experienced authors have said is you do not put everything into one book. Create a series of books, and that's exactly what I'm hearing you saying about video content. Is don't try and have a video with everything in it. Break it up into a whole series.
Yes, and Bridget, you bring up a really good point. We're supposed to trim the tops of the trees, not get down into the nitty gritty. And when you're giving people the information, just give them the tops of the trees and tell them the right stories that establish the right belief patterns. And when you do that, people start nodding with you and you move them through the stages. And that's a lot of fun. It takes strategy, but if we learn anything from watching Netflix, if it's personal to us and relevant, if it's on demand, meaning when we're ready to go down that buyer's journey, and if it is binge worthy, all of those move us from people that have short attention spans or an overabundance of attention options into people that continue to select going through this journey. It just takes a little engineering at the beginning, but once you do it, it's like being on a slip and slide that has water taking you all the way to the big lake. You're just moving people easier.
Yeah. So just a follow-up question, Todd, on that. So one of the conversations we sort of started before the show, the word helpful came into it.
Yes.
We had that discussion. And I really don't want to hold all that knowledge to myself. So do you want to just
Yeah.
link that word to what you've just said, because a lot of it makes sense.
Perfect. I love it. The saying everybody should be writing down and using to lead their social marketing, which I call zone one, is helpful is the new viral. Helpful is the new viral because do you know who gets hired today? It's not the person with the most experience or the longest resume. The person that gets hired is the one that demonstrates the greatest willingness to be helpful, to guide that person all the way to achieve their goals. That's often the person that is demonstrating that they are going to spend the extra time educating and guiding and being that big sister that's going to move people to their ultimate outcome. So the way you facilitate that in zone one on social is you create videos that are helpful, where all you're doing, and you're never asking for the sale because you don't have to. All you're doing is answering the frequently asked questions that come up on a daily basis. So everybody that's following you looks at you and says, that person's the guru of that topic, that business, that problem, that solution. And so you use those videos, and then in those videos you say, hey, and if you need more information on how to do X, Y, and Z, just click on the link in the comment section below and you take them to the landing page that's relevant to their needs, pain, and frustrations. And in doing so, instead of sending them to your homepage, which is really for anybody, you've now aligned with what their problem is and brought them to the page on your site that specifically addresses that problem and guides them to schedule a meeting with you.
So there's a lot of planning there. There's a lot of planning. This is not something you just choose to do overnight. But
well, right, but when people hear video, they have a historical bias to television commercials. That's why the number one question that people ask me throughout the day is, yeah, dude, that's great, but how long should the video be? Short, right? Like 30 seconds or something. And I tend to not look at this like television commercials because that is a product of a different medium and a different generation. I care about what stories do you need to tell in order for somebody to buy. And the last thing I ever think of is how long that video should be.
Okay, so Todd, just for those of us that are really struggling to keep up with you, there's like a flood of information. Break it down to just 2, maybe 3 examples where you've successfully been able to help small businesses with this.
Sure. So the most important part is the speed in which you educate. I mean, think about it. If teachers could educate you all the way through to university faster, they'd get better results. And the students, by the time they were at university, would be much further along. The same is true in business. If I can tell you how to teach somebody faster, you're going to get better results. So where do you get started? The first thing you have to do is recognize that there's a consistent pattern. People are probably going to find you on social media, and then they're going to want to develop a deeper relationship. So create those paths from social, be the guru of that topic, move them into a specific landing page where you have all the relevant information in the right order, and then use video anytime you have a lot to teach. So a lot of people use text to teach, but when we see a wall of text, what happens in our brain is we see the wall of text, and in our brain we hear don, don, don. Like, that's a lot of work. I'm not sure I'm down for that much work, reading a whole wall of text. And it's inefficient because it creates paralysis analysis in our brain. Instead, use text sparingly on your journey page. And anytime you've got a big belief that you have to transfer, use video, because people won't read, but they're 4 times more likely to watch video. They're going to retain 95% of the message in video instead of 10% when they read text. And when they're done watching those videos, they're 85% more likely to buy. Boom! Like, all we're doing is giving people, spoon feeding them the easy transfer of information. And it doesn't matter how many videos it takes. What matters is that you connect it to an experience that feels personal and relevant to that recipient. So here's where it gets a little tricky. If you are a consultant, I know you asked me for some business samples, small business. Down the street from my office, I've got an insurance company. They are mom and pop. I know the owners, but they opened up a health insurance company to rival the big companies. So when they first met us, they had 6,000 customers, meaning patients that are paying on a monthly basis to get insurance. And then what we did is we realized, whoa, they're marketing to everybody as one type of customer, but they really have three types of customers. They have individuals that need to buy insurance. They have employers like me that want to buy insurance for their whole family at the office. And then they also have brokers that sell insurance to companies like mine or to individuals. Those are three different customers. They need to go down three different journey pages because each of them has unique pain, frustration, and problems that need to be solved. So when you are fishing in social media for leads, let's say you're being really helpful to an individual that's looking for insurance, direct them to the individual page, and so on for the other two persona groups. The net goal of this is we started off with 6,000 customers. Within 4 months, they're onboarding 290,000 patients, which is a 48 times increase. The big dogs are going to the big companies, are going to market to everybody as one size fits all. The little engine that's going to outcompete the big dog and do it with less money is going to be more intimate, more personal, more relevant, more binge worthy. And in doing so, customers will reward them with more money.
Okay.
Wow, that is amazing. So, Todd, once you've niched down on your messaging and you've started your journey with video, how do you measure if what you're doing is successful? And do you measure as you go along, or do you measure at the end of a campaign?
Yeah, it's a really great question. It depends. It depends on what your budget is. It depends on your level of savviness. And it depends on if you're going to jump in with both feet. So the basic way to measure is measure like you already measure. How many more proposals are you going to be giving? How many more proposals are people going to say yes to? You can do it that way. There's nothing wrong with it. As your company gets larger and your budgets get bigger, you're going to want to add software that'll do that for you. So, for example, I teach as part of the value that I give to people, I teach a mini course on how to guarantee your videos generate ROI, return on investment. And I'll tell people where they can go. It's free. You can go get the access to the mini course. But the reality is, if you connect software on the back end, you can get a notification when people are watching your videos, and your phone can alert you to say, oh, look, Brigetti just watched 92% of the video where I'm teaching how to create a customer journey page. 92%. That's her attention span. That's her digital body language. And because I can't physically be there with her, now I know she's giving me the attention span of a buyer. And so we prioritize who to follow up with based on how much attention they're giving us, which is a wonderful covert signal. When my company started doing this for ourselves, we went from a 9-week sales cycle into a 3-week sales cycle because we started to identify covertly who were the people that were really interested. And instead of giving everybody the same level of attention, we allowed the software to nurture the people that weren't watching the videos past the 80% mark. And the people that were watching the videos past the 80% mark, they were getting our undivided attention and answers. So every stage through the process, even though you've got videos that are going to live on your website and videos on social, when you get into the sales process and you have your first meeting, if somebody asks you a question where you detect in your head that they're experiencing confusion or frustration, it's your job right there to grab your phone after you answer that call I mean, answer that question remotely or in person or however you do it. But then after that conversation, grab your phone and say, Brigetti, it was great talking with you a few moments ago. I noticed you asked the question about ROI. And to make it really simple, I just drew this out for you. And I want to walk you through each of the steps. And you just kind of walk them through. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And it's so easy to do. And then you send it off to them. And then again, helpful becomes your guiding light through the process. The more you can provide to people that you're willing to go above and beyond for them and that you're going to answer their questions and make sure they can watch it multiple times or share it with their team that might be in another office somewhere that they need to educate, the more likely you are to get yes.
Awesome. That makes perfect sense. Great stuff. Todd, so I'm a small business owner. I'm watching the show. I'm completely motivated, very excited about what you've had to say. Where do I start? And I can't afford Todd Hartley, and I'm stuck in Cape Town, South Africa.
Yeah, I totally get it. Well, I have 20 minutes of video where I'm teaching how to sell remotely. I think that's the most important part. You know, Tony Robbins reached out to me right before the quarantine, and he said, can you create a series of training videos for my clients so they know how to sell remotely in this new COVID era? So the videos that I created for him, I also have added onto my website, and I will teach you the big picture, like I just explained here, so you can share it with your colleagues. But I also teach you some of my tips where I pick up my phone and I use what I got to influence prospects, so you can do it on the cheap, and you can get access to that at Wirebuzz, WIREBUZZ.com/remote-sales. And that page will guide you all the way through the process.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much. That's been an inspiring interview. It's been amazing chatting to you. We, of course, will share any kind of comments that we get on the show from our viewers. We'll definitely make sure that it's communicated to you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's been amazing.
Can I leave you on one last thing?
Please
do.
I am the product of a female entrepreneur. And I was raised in her home, and I watched her struggle and every day turn over a new leaf and triumph. And at the core, it's all about relationship development and making sure that your clients and prospects love you and you care and nurture for them and get them to their end goal. Don't hesitate to start using the power of video. It may take me 10 takes or 40 takes to get the perfect video that I send, but the number one word that I get when I send video to people individually is love. People will love you because you took the extra time to educate and inspire them to their goal. And when you do that, they will never leave you because you emotionally connected to them and you were their champion. And I wish all of you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Todd, thank you. It was amazing having you. And thank you to everyone who's watched us live today. And if you're catching the show on the replay, we would like to join us 6 days a week, every Tuesday at 9 a.m. EST or 3 p.m. GMT +2, and Monday through to Saturdays, with the exception of Tuesdays. You can catch us at 1 p.m. EST and 7 p.m. GMT +2 for some more conversations that matter and inspire. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day further. And it's goodbye from us for now.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much.